Maybe the Jets, Josh, could be interested in potentially drafting a wide receiver. They were in on Tyreek Hill and ultimately fell short. If you are looking at the Jets and you see that they have number 4 and number 10 overall in the first round, by the way, this draft is going to be so weird because maybe you guys know, if not, don't worry about it. We can count it up like while Josh is talking, but the number of teams that have 2 picks in the first round or more, or the number of teams that don't have a first round pick. Like there's like 8 or 9 teams that don't even need to show up on Thursday.
Yeah, I think we are at 9 teams that do not have a pick in the first round. So it's going to be unheard of. I mean, there's, I think, 7 teams that control nearly half of the first round. It's absurd. But the Jets, they own 2 of those picks at number 4 and number 10 overall. The fact that they were in the mix for Tyreek Hill suggests that they want some wide receiver help. But the fact that they were also in the mix suggests that maybe they had their eyes on other positions and they were hoping to fill that wide receiver hole through a trade as they tried to do. So wide receiver is back on the board for that team. I think you could see them go offensive tackle. There's been a lot of buzz to suggest that. I would like to see them go cornerback, and I wouldn't mind see them taking an edge rusher. So it's a team with a lot of very easy needs, easily identifiable. So as I'm looking at this team, a couple of prospects that I really like, and I'm sure Traps has kind of focused in on these guys as well, but Cincinnati cornerback Ahmad Gardner, who has great length, man coverage cornerback, and then Kayvon Thibodeau, the pass rusher from Oregon, who seems to fall later in mock drafts each and every day. I still think he would be a fantastic fit for New York as they continue to build that defensive front with Quinnen Williams, and then a healthy Carl Lawson on the other side.
What say you, Traps, on that the top end of the draft for the Jets?
Yeah, just to look to see where they are. To be at 4 and 10, like Josh said, I think it's got to be Sauce Gardner at 4. It just seems like that's going to be the prospect that's available when they pick after those first 3 selections shake out. And then at number 10, I think the guy that I've mocked the most to the Jets is Garrett Wilson. I mean, to have Elijah Moore, he flashed last season as a rookie, had a nice rapport with Zach Wilson, even Mike White, while Zach Wilson was out. But to add another bouncy, springy type wide receiver that is good after the catch, runs good routes, I think at number 10, maybe be the first wide receiver off the board. That makes a lot of sense to me. I'm not huge on Mekhi Becton. If they went offensive tackle, I certainly would not hate that because Zach Wilson got sacked a bunch last year. And it is a good wide receiver class. They have a bunch of picks in round 2 and round 3. But I think Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson would make the most sense to me. If Kayvon Thibodeau's there and they love him, I would be okay with that. And I would get it because Robert Saleh is a defensive-minded coach. But in the AFC, I mean, yeah, you can say, hey, like, let's get a lot of pass rushers to disrupt these quarterbacks. But you also have to score a lot of points in this completely loaded AFC. So I would like them to go maybe corner at 4, Sauce Gardner, and then Garrett Wilson, or maybe Chris Olave at number 10.
Okay, so Sauce Gardner, I need to look at the market for this, but I want to say that Sauce Gardner is like a pretty heavy favorite now to be the first cornerback drafted. Has he? Oh, yeah. I mean, I know that the general consensus is that he's sort of maybe a higher floor and potentially similar ceiling to Derek Stingley. So yeah. It would be surprising if Stingley was the first cornerback at this point, right?
Yeah, at this point, I think so, just because of his injury history over the past couple of years. I mean, Stingley, when healthy, has shown that he's proven to be that top cornerback talent. But the fact that he has not been on the field that much over the past 2 years, and Ahmad Gardner has not only been on the field, but been uber productive, just leads me to believe that he's probably going to be the first cornerback taken.
So, and I just while we're doing this, I like to incorporate the draft odds where we have them. Sauce Gardner over under 8.5. Under meaning he's taken in the first 8 picks. Over means it's 9 or later. Under is minus 161, so it's really juiced. But that's a stone cold lock, right?
I think so. I don't see how he gets past the Jets, the Giants, all those teams inside the top 8. I think the Jets, just because they have such a clear-cut need, they signed Marcus Williams in free agency, but really have not really addressed the corner spot. And that was the biggest issue, I think, as much as the offensive line last year, was how bad the secondary was. I would definitely, even with it being minus 170 or whatever you said, I would definitely go under 8.5. That seems like a lock to me.
I will say one thing that could throw a wrench into all of this is where are the the quarterbacks going to go?
Yeah.
We might talk about a couple of those destinations, but although we do not see any of these guys as maybe top 10 talents, speaking for myself, I'm not going to speak for Traps, but I don't see any of these guys as top 10 talents. But there's almost certainly going to be one taken in the top 10 because that's just how it's played out over the past couple of decades in the NFL.
Yeah, and you look at the teams that would potentially want a quarterback that early, like the Lions had the second overall pick and then nothing else until 32, which is great, but Malik Willis, if they like Malik Willis, he's not falling to 32. You know, the Panthers have the sixth overall pick. You know, you'd love to trade down and get Kenny Pickett or Malik Willis or whoever you like, or maybe Desmond Ridder, who they just going to every pro day, but don't go to Desmond Ritter's pro day. I mean, okay, whatever. Anyway,
What is that?
I know, although maybe it's like an obvious, like a reverse smokescreen that they're like, oh, yeah, we don't like Desmond Ridder, as far as you know. They don't have a second round pick either, so it's if they want a quarterback, they got to take him at 6, and so I think those things are just kind of interesting to kind of hash out. I'm probably going to bet Gardner. 161 is a lot, but it feels like 8.5 is a pretty good spot to be in. Plus, if you're the Jets, they're not going to take a quarterback. And if you want a cornerback, don't you sort of have to go take him at 4? Like you can't be like, all right, we'll take Thibodeau at 4 and then we'll hope that, Sauce falls to us at 10. I mean, that's because he's probably not going to.
Yeah, let me jump in here. I think Sauce Gardner could be, we don't really see a ton of teams moving up for corners, although, it has happened a few times recently. Sauce Gardner seems like the type of corner that you would do that for a lot of the reasons that Josh pointed out, because of his man coverage ability, how big he is, he tested well. And then all the other corners, like Derek Stingley, an enigma because of the injury. We don't know if he's even fully healthy. Andrew Booth from Clemson didn't work out at the Clemson Pro Day. The 2 Washington corners, Trent McDuffie and Kyler Gordon, ran a lot slower and were a lot smaller than people expected. So it kind of feels like Sauce Gardner is kind of alone in this top tier. And yes, if there is a team, maybe just outside the top 10 that sees Gardner falling a little bit past maybe the Jets at 4, he's the type that has the kind of physical profile and had kind of a super clean college season that to me indicates a team would say, hey, let's trade up a few spots and get Sauce Gardner in our secondary. Yeah.
And just to further the quarterback point too, Pete Prisco's mock draft, which came out right before the Tyreek Hill trade, or maybe the day before, he has Sauce going 10 to the Jets, but that's because they took Thibodeau at 4. And
I would flip that.
Yeah, I agree with that. But to the quarterback point, he had Pickett going to the Panthers and Malik Willis going to the Falcons at 6 and 8. And the Giants, who would be the problem for Sauce, went with Icky at 5 and Kyle Hamilton, which, that's not an unrealistic scenario.
No.
But I do agree with you. If you're looking at the Giants and, I guess the Giants could take Thibodeau there. I'm just sort of thinking through the because I'm going to do my mock in the next 3 or 4 days. My first one. Thrilled.
I've done 25, I think. So
at this point, you guys are just like meet more. I just sort of wonder. I think if I were the Jets, cornerback, you don't see cornerbacks going to the top 5 very often, but I would rather run the risk of Thibodeau dropping to 10 just because of the teams ahead of me versus Sauce Gardner dropping to 10.
Yes.
Yeah, too. And here's another point to that as well. There's more edge rushers in this class than there are cornerbacks. So You may not get Kayvon Thibodeau, but maybe you get Georgia's Trayvon Walker. Maybe you get Florida State's Jermaine Johnson, Purdue's George Karlaftis. There's going to be options available if you're dead set on taking an edge rusher and you miss out on Thibodeau. Whereas if you miss out on Gardner, your options are pretty much Stingley, or you wait maybe until your second round pick to address that position.